Look good?
Yeah, quite possibly. A little high. So, you can totally see it's such a wide angle. Yep, we're good.
Cool. All right. And we're live. So we're changing the camera angle this week. We normally have it from the back end, kind of catching our profile, and we're doing a straight on kind of, I get to look into the crowd and discuss what we're discussing. This week we're discussing WordPress. And I don't know if I should look in the camera or look at the people.
Yeah, look at us.
I think I'm going to look at the people. I don't know if I want to sit there and stare at a camera. So anyways, welcome to Cake. I'm Derek. Graham's back from Sweden.
Hi. Hello.
Can anybody hear him? I'm going to turn the laptop this way so I can see comments. That's why I wanted you sitting over here. Alright, so now I have comments from the chat. Jonathan's on there right now and one other person. And yeah, so we're going to discuss what we were going to discuss last week. And it's kind of one of those topics that people think they have a website and they don't really need to discuss websites. And I think a website's a really key piece to your business, especially in today's day and age. And you don't have to be a programmer or a technical consultant or anything like that to run a website. You can do it with WordPress, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Oftentimes, if you're trying to get a website up and running, you want it to be this big, greatest thing right off the bat, and you're going to pay some web designer thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, and you're going to get a really great product, but really your resources could be better put in other parts of your business. And I think, especially for a lot of local businesses and small business owners and people that are not trying to capture national attention right away, you don't need a big fancy website. And you can actually grow your website in stages as your business grows. And a lot of the times with websites, the language, the HTML can get kind of confusing. So that's why I kind of focus a lot on content management systems like WordPress, because it will actually take your content and place it in nice little neat boxes so you don't have to worry about positioning or anything like that. And I'm going to talk pretty much this whole time about WordPress, but I want to kind of touch base on a couple of other content management systems. If you just kind of have tried WordPress, throw your hands up and want to boycott it for whatever reason, there's other options out there. Joomla is actually a pretty popular platform. It's a little bit more techy of a feel. You have to know a little bit more about HTML coding and a little bit more about CSS and so forth. Actually, Floaton's first website was Joomla-based, and Graham actually built that.
Yeah, it is right now. The current one we have up.
I thought it was Ruby.
We're working on a Ruby site right now.
Is it? You had me tricked. I thought that second version was the newest version. So I stand corrected. So it still stands as Joomla, and you can go on there right now, and it's a beautiful website. It takes a lot more coding than I think it would be if it was a WordPress website. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. I caught him in the middle of a drink. So.
Yes, absolutely.
It's one of those things that I think, why did you choose Joomla for that platform? What was your basis?
So we had been, basically we wanted, so we had like just a straight HTML version of the website. And the reason we ended up going with Joomla after looking at like Drupal and WordPress and everything else was just for level of customization that's open. And it still made it look like it was just kind of a plug and play, like you can drag things around, but and it does have an incredible level of customization, but to get into that you really need like an actual Joomla programmer or someone who at the very least like really intensively knows PHP. Right. And even then it's like just knowing what extensions are available to Joomla and what works well together. It ends up being like almost its own language, despite being, way kind of higher up in the food chain. So yeah, it just ended up biting off a lot more than I expected. It just takes a lot longer to get set up unless you're really familiar with the platform already. Mm-hmm. Not very user-friendly, I guess.
Yeah, and there are other options that are a little bit more user-friendly. One of the most basic ones is Tumblr. And Tumblr is more of a blog function. It's more of a social blog function where you have a piece of content and people can kind of reblog that and tumble that into their own blog. And some people are fans of Tumblr. I'm not at all for any business whatsoever. I mean, you can kind of make it look like a website, but it will still always be a Tumblr blog. Blogger is Google's version of WordPress. It's blogspot.com. You can actually get on blogger.com. I think they have that URL that points to it. And it's another blogs-based structure that you can have it look like a website, but I think there's less functionality in Blogger than you would have in WordPress. There's less of a developer community, so like Graham talked about Joomla, there's lots of extensions and plugins and so forth. there's a lot bigger community in WordPress than any other community out there as far as what other people are developing that you can just piggyback off of. And that's kind of a big thing that I push WordPress for people, because you don't have to know how to have a calendar sit in your website. You can actually just have a plugin that will display a calendar. So, I mean, there's a lot of different functions. I mean, there's tens of thousands of plugins you can have for a WordPress site. And then, the main thing about WordPress is it's 72 million different websites in WordPress right now. Some of the most popular, news websites like Mashable, things that you would just go on an everyday basis and you can't really tell it's WordPress because it's been highly modified. And again, that goes into the evolution of your website. If you start off small with something that you can kind of mold yourself, when you do get to the point to go nationwide or even just want a more polished feel, you can still keep the same platform, not have to worry about transferring things over, and just build upon it so it will actually look like a nice professional website. And that's kind of like why I just pick WordPress. I want to lead with WordPress for the rest of the lecture. And so really this whole thing is about do-it-yourself websites. We're Cake, we're scrappy, we try to do things at the lowest possible cost possible. And WordPress sites really cost you no more than a URL registration and some hosting. You can actually have a WordPress site hosted by WordPress, but there's limitations to that for not only what you can plug into it, but also themes are limited on it, and being able to upload via FTP, which is a little bit more complex, but you'll need to do that for some larger files, like if you want to host a video or audio file on it. Max is like 7 megabytes on WordPress. And so, I mean, even our PDFs that we upload can be 8 megabytes if we want a nice high-res printable PDF, and WordPress just can't upload that, so it's nice to have an FTP function for it. So kind of just going to go through the steps to build your own website. This is a course more for the I don't know shit about websites. I want to have something for my business. And as a disclaimer, before I started learning WordPress, I knew very little about websites. I knew HTML, and that was enough to get me by, and it was just kind of like I used a lot of different resources that I'll share with you later about how I took my limited knowledge, and now I've actually built websites for money, for people, and there are websites that I can pride myself like, hey, I built this website out of WordPress. And so I think with my limited HTML knowledge, building what I have built on WordPress, it's great for just anybody to be able to do it. First things first is get your URL and get some hosting. Whatever the case may be, you can use GoDaddy to register your domains. If you want to use something else, there was a big boycott on GoDaddy for a little bit there. Whatever the case may be, get a URL, get some hosting. Never use GoDaddy hosting. Never use GoDaddy hosting for anything, especially WordPress. It's one of the most pain-in-the-ass platforms to install WordPress on. And pick something like Media Temple, DreamHost, Lunar Pages. There's a lot of other hosts out there that are very WordPress friendly, and not only the being able to update it, but also just the installation of WordPress. Most hosts, you'll just go into your control panel that'll already be a nice, hey, would you like to install WordPress on your host? Yes, I do. And it will pretty much take you through a step-by-step process of securing your administrator name and your password, and giving you basically, within a few minutes, the ability to log into your dashboard on WordPress. So really, I mean, if you look at it, you can have a WordPress site ready to be edited in less than an hour. I mean, that gives you time to kind of scrap together and pick up some graphics and kind of work on your content. One of the nice things about WordPress that I direct people towards the most is the ability and the freedom to upload whatever theme you want. And WordPress has a nice series of free themes, but again, their functionality is limited. And you can actually get a WordPress theme for like $35, $40 that's going to have a large, array of functions and already built-in plugins that are going to give you nice graphical sliders. Just the layout of them is better, I think. The color schemes are better. If you really want to keep it do-it-yourself and simple, a lot of the premium themes for WordPress out there will have multiple color schemes, so you don't always have to pick the default one. And they're really easy to customize, so it's not looking like the same website that 100 other people bought the theme. That's one thing that you notice, that if you do WordPress enough or know what WordPress themes look like, you start, oh, that's a WordPress theme, that's a WordPress theme. And because people just kind of go with the bare bones, the gray color scheme, and just run with it, they don't try to tweak with the color or anything. And that's fine. It's just one of those things that for $35, $40, there's no reason why you can't have a theme that's going to have a color scheme that's going to fit your brand and just really kind of give it its own personal touch. The whole point of this is to have a WordPress site that doesn't look like a blog. Most people correlate WordPress with blog, and they say, well, I want a professional website, I don't want a blog for my business. Well, you want a blog for your business as a side thought, not your front leading, face. So choose a theme. There's a couple of different theme places out there.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the difference between like a professional website and blog. Basically, could you just come and give a couple points on what some of the attributes of those two things?
A nice landing page on a professional site. Most of the time when it's just a blog only, you'll see a date categorized post with posts below it. You'll see a sidebar that has like your most recent categories and your archived categories and tags and topics that you've
like a content management system.
Right, and so you'll have more of a article feel on a blog versus a professional website. You're actually going to have different content boxes that might have a call to action and kind of not have that column layout. You can actually have a more strategically placed website. So, we talked about in previous sessions the F pattern on websites. So with that F pattern, most people read a website left to right, and they get a couple lines, and then they just scroll down the left-hand side. So you can kind of tailor your website to kind of work with that. Have a couple of lines of content, maybe a call to action. And then below the fold, go into more details if you want to go that route, or just jump them to another page. So yeah, that was a good question
and
about.
As long as we're on that one, maybe you're going to talk about this in a second, but just kind of explaining what a CMS is, as opposed to just straight being a blog, content management software.
So WordPress is a CMS in the sense of it's going to manage your content in pages, and so WordPress has a couple different functions: pages and posts. And posts is where your blogs are going to be housed. Pages are actually straight up uncolumnized. You can format them however you want it. Static pages, yeah. That's the technical term is a static page is where you're going to have, the ability to open it up and place your elements that you want. WordPress has a nice visual editor, and that's the one key thing about WordPress more than just like Joomla and having to know code is you can graphically align your images with your text and not having to know what the HTML tag for right align is. It'll just do that for you. And do you want to expand on that anymore, Graham? Okay. And so once you pick a theme, there's a couple of good places to pick a theme that I recommend. One of them is ThemeForest, and it's themeforest.net. You can go to ThemeForest, and they have a specific WordPress section that you can go through and say, I like the way that one looks. Let me open it up, and it gives you an actual live demo of what that blog or website will look like. So you can actually go into ThemeForest. Themes Kingdom is another one I just stumbled upon, and just actually test drive it like you would a car. It's got basically, Latin for the text filler and some, common, graphics to kind of as a placeholder and kind of give you a function for how the website flows and functions. And those two premium theme sources, Themes Kingdom and ThemeForest, I think are some of the best ones. And again, they're going to be within the $30 to $40 range for a theme. So when you think about spending thousands on a website or just $40 for a theme, and the theme's like a skin. So WordPress has this very basic function if you don't install anything on it. And then you can actually have it positioned with a slider and a different colored menu bar. Those themes are kind of like a skin on like a phone or something like that, or like a background for your desktop. You just kind of install those, and it kind of gives you a different visual feel for it. Do you have a better way to explain what a theme is, Graham? Or?
No, that's great. Okay. My only question would be, do you have any advice on picking a theme, on whether to choose something you just think is pretty, or if there's certain things you should look for in terms of simplicity and understandability, or what are the criteria for a good theme?
So I would pick something that is simple and easy to edit versus having all this great graphical movements. A lot of the themes come when you install them bare bones, and the sliders and things are functions you can install later through plugins built into the site, or just different menu functions. Like I'll go in through your menu and go general settings and say, yes, install a slider on the front page. I want 3 slides. And you can get a little bit more technical. So rather than focusing on all the fancy stuff, and it's just like when you buy a car, they want it polished and it's going to look great, and they're going to open up all the doors and they're going to show you how the seat kind of reclines back and heats up. It looks great when they're showing it to you on the demo. You're going to handle it and go, oh, this isn't exactly what he showed me. Where was that again? And so you do have to know a little bit. The more technical it is, chances are it's not going to be what it is when you install it, but just know that functionality is there and that you can find it or have somebody else find it for you, but it's better than trying to hard code that function in. So, does that answer kind of?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. And after you install a theme, the next thing I would say is jump into installing plugins. Plugins are the extras that you can actually put onto your WordPress website that give it more functionality. The plugins are generally made by developers in the WordPress community, or there's even companies out there that make money through donations of, hey, I made this great plugin. If you really like it, you should give me $5. And it's still, that works the same whether you give them $5 or not. Sometimes there's a premium plugin that you'll unlock more functionality once you donate. But really, I kind of have a list of plugins, and I have it also in my notes here. I'm going to put it up on the website that you should really install right away when you have WordPress. One of them is Better WP Security, and that kind of gives you a different perspective on making your website secure. It gives you a checklist of, I believe, 27 different measures, and it will say where your holes are in your website security, because WordPress being open source and easily developed, it's also easily hacked in the sense of if you don't have certain things. If you have a plugin installed that kind of leaves you open, it will say, this plugin is a little malicious. You might want to think about deactivating it and find another plugin that does the same thing. And so Better WP Security kind of helps you with simple things like your login page for most WordPress sites is your URL /wp-login.php, and you'll find that on most WordPress sites, unless you have that redirected to your own thing. So it's not easily find the login page. You can have it named whatever else you want. It just gives you a whole load of checklists to go through. The top one is All-in-One SEO. All-in-One SEO is one of the plugins we actually talked about during the week Heather Lloyd was here. It's a plugin that goes on every single page and post that you make for WordPress. It helps you with your metadata, so you don't have to go in and know where the header is, and you gotta make sure your keywords are here and your description here. It just straight up says, what's the title of this page? And then if you refer back to that week, we give you some great tips on properly titling your page for search engine optimization. What's the description of the page and any keywords that you want to put on there? And it'll say, try to keep it under this many characters. It'll give you some guidelines so you're not overloading your metadata, so you're not getting ranked lower in Google's eyes. And there's a whole list of them. One of them I really like is HTML/JavaScript adder. WordPress not having the robust JavaScript capabilities naturally gives you the ability to have some JavaScript stuff running on your page or in your sidebar. Kind of gives you a little bit more, like Facebook has a certain plugin that you want to have running on your sidebar or your footer. That JavaScript adder will help that function and look properly. Backup. So Back WP Up is another one. It will actually back up your WordPress site on a routine basis and put it in another folder on your server. That's great in case your website crashes or you make a really bad mistake editing it. You can always go back to. You've done it, yeah. Yeah, it's a great plugin to have in it. You can schedule it to go on routine.
All over again. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really.
There was a lot into the second time, but
yeah,
definitely, like, there was some problems with styling on the website. And so I just had to backtrack a little bit. And next thing I knew, there was no styling on the website, and no style sheet for it, and it was time to start over again.
Yeah, and that's the one thing too. When I sometimes use WordPress's style sheet editor that they already have built in instead of going in through the back end and taking it out. And I'll just copy the existing style sheet into a notepad or just something else so I can go, oh, I screwed that up, and just paste that copy back in. Because it's sometimes hard because there is no line numbers to know where it was. It's not the best editor, but for a quick change, you know exactly where it's at. Like, I want to change this color to this. Boom, 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 done. And Yeah, but having some kind of redundancy, some kind of way to back up your site is definitely going to help you, especially if you're doing it all yourself. If you mess up, just know that there's a safety net to catch you to revert back to. And WordPress actually has a pretty good, I think it was one of their recent updates, a restore function. So you can actually, the trick I've used it is, so I'm editing a page, I get out of it, and sometimes Chrome or Internet Explorer will say, you're about to leave this page without saving the data. Do you want to leave this page? You leave the page. And then you go back into that page, and it will say, there is auto-saved material. You click on that, and it'll bring up the host of all your versions that you've done on that. You can kind of scroll back to the previous version that you were comfortable with and hit restore, and it'll put that HTML back in. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways to help cover your ass as far as, like, if you do it. If you make a mess up, just know you can always go back and save it. We have a lot of questions here that we're going to cover here. Burke's firing away, and Jonathan as well.
Do you want me to come over and monitor questions?
Totally
head back there.
Yeah, I know you wanted to sit amongst the crowd.
I know, amongst the people.
I'm working on both here.
Okay.
So, a couple other different things I found useful. WP Super Cache, and we just tipped that over. Super Cache. Are you familiar with Super Cache? So.
Sorry, we just had a camera.
Oh no, the whole universe is twisted.
Yeah, it was like, what is it? What is that movie? The one that no. What was that one movie that everything kind of rolls? I haven't seen it. It was,
yeah.
Nobody can think of it.
Something
Something with Inception, yeah. Yeah, it's like, whoa, everything's kind of taking shape. But, yeah, WP Super Cache is actually going to cache your website in the back end so it loads faster for the user.
Oh, sweet.
So WP Super Cache, most people have a cache on their computer and so forth, and it kind of helps load the images quicker. WP Super Cache kind of does it on the back end, so it knows the things that are going to be static the most, kind of compress them or put them to the top of the display order. So it helps with the quicker loading of your website, and that really is one of those nuances that people don't really pay attention to, is how fast your website loads. If I'm trying to find out who you are, and it takes 2 minutes for your entire website to load, I'm probably going to move on. I'm not that interested. And so that's another one that I recommend. One of the questions that I saw in there really quick, and I'm going to touch on right now, is contact forms. Like, what's a really good contact form to use? And there's a couple of top ones, and I think the one for compatibility that I use is Contact Form 7. There's another one that's right up there as far as the reviews on WordPress as to how it functions and so forth. I've had fewer problems with Contact Form 7. And you can go in there and basically create a customized contact form for whatever you want it to be. Sign up for my email list. Sign up for my products. Tell me who you are so I can better tailor my services towards you. I want to send you coupons. You can have a multitude of questions. And there's a little caveat there that you don't want to get too complicated on your form, because I think the more elements, the more fields on your form, especially if you make them required, people aren't going to fill it out because they don't know you. They're not going to submit all of their personal information to you just yet. So I mean, if you're trying to, it's the whole degrading actions that we talked about in the previous session. It's like, just if your goal is to get an email, just have a simple like, hey, enter your email here and sign up. And if you want to know their name, the first name required, last name optional. The least information people can give, the more success rate I think you're going to have on sign-up forms. Do you agree with that? And blog comments. So that's another thing is, so when you do have a blog on your website, because you'll want to be blogging, whether for a number of reasons, and I kind of touch about this a little bit later. A good way to manage comments, WordPress's native one, I think sucks. There's a lot of different ones. You can have a Facebook comment section where people have to use their Facebook account to comment. I don't like that one because my Facebook is about the only private social media network I have. And so the one I found that I kind of like is Discuss. And Discuss has, and it's Discuss spelled D-I-S-Q-U-S. Discuss is a comment manager that will give you administrator functions. It'll give you the ability to block people from commenting if you find that it's very spammy. If they're saying, hey, sign up for my website here. It actually has probably one of the best spam filters built into it. It knows through whatever method, IP address or whatnot, who's probably going to spam. Keywords, sign up for, anything that like is targeted, like this person always says this on their comment, it's going to block them. And I think
What's the name of that one again? Contact form.
So it's DISQUS is discuss.
Right, discuss, yeah.
And I think that's the best one I've used. And you can actually create your own profile, and a lot of different websites use discuss. So your profile will house on each one of those websites, and your comment history will kind of carry forward through you. So the nice thing about that is you have a little bit of a policing issue of like, you don't want to just go troll forums if you're using Discuss, because that Discuss ID is going to be carried forward to every blog that uses Discuss. And so it's kind of like a reputation building thing. If you're getting banned from a lot of different Discuss moderated chat rooms or comment sections, you'll probably get banned from all future ones. So it kind of helps with trolls and people trying to sell you crap on the internet.
Until
They change it, but yeah, it's just kind of the game. And like I said, I find the native one for WordPress is poor. That's just kind of the recommendation I use for that. Another one that I recommend is WP Touch. It's a WordPress plugin that basically makes your website mobile. So you can have a website and have it mobile optimized as far as like not having it too flashy so it loads on most phones, but really, you know, the links and so forth are hard. You have to zoom in and you have to click on it and that kind of thing. What WP Touch does is it takes the main elements and it knows like your menu button. It's going to make your menu button finger size, and so it kind of puts everything into a column, and that's easy to read, so you don't have to scroll back and forth and lose where you're at. It's pretty intelligent knowing how to break up your website and display it properly.
Can you break it up yourself with it?
I think there's a premium form of that I don't get into, but I've noticed just even through like Cake's, you know, Cake has a WordPress function, so half of Cake is Ruby, half of it's WordPress, and it breaks up the WordPress form nice, where you can actually just look at the article titles, click on it, open it up, there's share functions automatically built into it, so if you're viewing it from your phone. And it's important, especially if you're sharing your website through social media networks. Like over half of all social media usage is done by phones or even iPads nowadays, things that aren't computers with mouse driven. And especially Twitter, you know, I think 70% of Twitter users use it only by their phone, and if they're clicking on something that's not mobile friendly, chances are they're not going to stick around and read whatever it is or even surf or navigate your website. And so as far as the installation functions, we talked about installing WordPress, installing a theme, installing plugins. There's another plugin that I talk about that's really nice. It's for a temporary landing page, and I don't have the name for that because I just discovered it. And so when you're building your website, chances are you're going to want just a one-page landing page with your contact information, a little bit about who you are while you develop the rest of it. And this one simple plugin, and I'll post it up on the website of what it is great because you can just have an image of your logo. You don't have to do the whole cheesy road construction under construction thing, but you can still have some of the most basic, like how to contact you, what you're about, some social media links in the meantime, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, I have all these undeveloped pages in a menu, and it just kind of gives people only one option to view your website. After you install all that, the next thing I would say install on your website is Google Analytics. Is probably one of the top things to install. And actually, that's probably the most technical thing of all the things I talk about installing, because there's no real easy function to install Google Analytics, in my opinion. There are some plugins, but I think the true way to make sure it's placed correctly is just follow Google's step-by-steps on where to place it. And in WordPress, there is, under your appearance, an editor, and in that editor it will come up with your different templates on the side. You just click on your template and just do a search, hit Control F, and search for the closing body tag, and just install your Google Analytics code right before that, and it's installed, you save it, and it's good. And it takes about 48 hours for Google Analytics to fully kick in effect, and I think that's why I recommend installing it early, simply so you can kind of, while you're developing your website, get the process running on being able to crawl it. And Google Analytics, I can go on for quite a while as to why it's important. It's great for knowing some of the best refers to your website. You know, you want to know if you're sharing things through Facebook, Twitter, and let's say you have an ad out on Google and an ad out on Facebook, it will tell you the most referred source of your website and know where to put your attention to. Is like, most people like coming through Facebook. Maybe I should pay more attention on Facebook right now. Or you can look at it from the other way. If it's doing so well on what you're doing on Facebook, you might want to change your ways on Twitter to help kind of even up the traffic. It also kind of helps you a lot of different ways. You can kind of guide people as far as, you know, funneling them, I think is what they call it, kind of like tracking the way they use your website, how long they're spending on it, whether they're just landing on it and bouncing off. And we talk about Google Analytics a lot in the SEO portion, and I think it's just an important thing to install right off the bat. And then that's pretty much the installation. You have your theme, you have your plugins, you have your analytics and everything running. I recommend developing in the background and making your pages live as you develop them. Simply because, I mean, you don't want to have somebody click on one of your pages that's in your menu bar and have it open up into nothing. Kind of, you know, you want to be scrappy and work quick as possible, but you want to at least have some kind of information there more than just coming soon. So I would always recommend, you know, developing your landing page first, maybe a contact form second so they can just reach you, and about us. I mean, one of the things I like to tell people when they're planning out their website is just get a list of pages you want to develop and just create those pages and don't publish them just yet. So that way you're kind of creating an outline of how you want your website to work. You can, you know, change the way your menu looks and kind of get a feel for everything, and then you put in the meat and potatoes of your website. And I basically call it prettify it later, you know, get it done now. I think that's kind of what you would recommend, is just start small.
Definitely. I think it was good advice too on not having any coming soon type pages. Like, it's either there or it's not. Like, coming soon, like there's no reason to put it up if it's coming soon. Like, just if it's coming soon, like, great. Like, the audience will find out about it when it launches.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, you know, there's a big difference between like a fully functional feature and like a page that has some information on it. And if you don't have a fully functioning page, just throw a page up there with some info.
Some text and a picture. Yeah.
Just for the time being, it shouldn't take more. I mean, if you've got all this stuff in your mind anyway, just write it out. If you already have a template that you've been using, so it's no big deal to get that ball rolling with something very simple and short.
Right, and you know, basically get it up now, and you can always make it, you know, I call it prettifying it. You can always prettify it later. You know, it's just one of those things. I think that, you know, you want to keep it simple in the beginning and develop as you go along. Also, because if you're doing this yourself for a website, you have a million other things to do, and you can always just kind of, you know, for creativity and productivity, I think when you spend like 4 hours on a task, you get burnt out. You know, if you start dividing your time up and say, okay, I'm done with WordPress, I'm going to work on some other things, take a breather and then come back to WordPress. It's kind of nice being able just to kind of add little elements later on instead of having to develop it all at once before you launch it. And we talk about a lot of this, and I talked about it last week and kind of shared a little bit about it this week. There's 3 key sessions that we've talked about that kind of help correlate with this. You know, week 10 we did killer copywriting. It was one of those things like having the perfect copy on your website to invoke emotion, have a call to action, and have basically guide people through your words as to what to do on the website. Week 13 we had Heather Lloyd come in and talk about SEO, and that can seem like a big overwhelming thing, but really SEO is search engine optimization. It's about having your website easily found online, primarily through Google. That's a big player in the game, and site design and structure kind of work along with that. Your content, again, we kind of piggybacked all this. So we had content week 10, SEO, and copywriting on week 13 that talked a little bit about week 10. And then week 14, Graham talked about design, colors, and different placements of your call to action, and the F pattern of a website. And you know, those 3, if you go back and listen to the audio on those videos, or you know, just kind of follow along with the sheets, will help guide you when it comes to developing your pages. And you know, just kind of first things first, what do you want to say on each page? Don't try to get too complicated. I mean, it depends on what you're really trying to do, but if it's just a marketing page for your brick and mortar business and you're not going to sell anything on it, you don't need, I think, more than 5 pages, let's be honest. I mean, you need like about you, the homepage, contact us, maybe if you have a key product or service, and that's about really it. There's not too much you're going to sell them online to have them come in. It's just about who you are, maybe what you offer. If you have a special sale you want to lead with on your homepage. I think, again, unless you're selling on your website, you don't need to get too deep on your website. Just have it look nice, and I mean, wouldn't you agree with that in the sense of like you don't need 45 pages talking about each little aspect of your business and product, and you don't need a separate page about your hours of operation and a separate page about how to contact you. You can put all that on one page. So I think those little things that kind of keep in mind when you're developing your website. I did a fun Google search, and you can kind of do this. I did a Google search for poorly designed websites. And there's a website out there that archives like the best of poorly designed websites, and it does it by year. And I went to 2011 because I know sites in 2004 are poorly designed. 2011 is still pretty bad. And I actually see these websites all the time where people will have starry backgrounds and animated characters dancing across the page, and the background's fiery red with yellow text, and people think that's great. And just refer back to week 14 and keep it clean and simple and presentable. I mean, if you look at most things that are in print in life, it's black text on a white background because our eyes are just easily adjusted to reading it. And your website should be monochromatic in that sense of easy to read. You don't want to have a black background with yellow text. You also don't want to heavily load it up with images or videos and stuff like that. You want to keep it easily read and kind of the focus on the page. And when it comes to your site design, try to keep what you want people to do on the first half of your page and what we call below the fold. So if they're scrolling down your website, you have like your first half of the page and they scroll down, there should be just another half of the page for more detailed content. And then just kind of leave it at that. If you really do have that much to say where people have to scroll down 3 times, you probably have enough content for another page. And so that's just kind of one of those things, just keep it easily digestible, especially now everybody in this world is diagnosed with ADD. Nobody has the time to sit there and read, 5 or 6 scroll downs on a page. It's a lot easier to kind of focus your attention to one thought and move on. And one of the last things I want to talk about, forget about the design and installing and so forth. I'm a marketer, and the big shift in marketing is content marketing. Nowadays people are kind of in tune to like buy from me type of marketing, and this is my product and my benefit marketing. And I think people are now doing business with companies they can relate to and fall in love with on a more personal level, and blogging really helps that shine through. And I think the one thing that WordPress is nice is natively it's a blog. But we've talked about everything you can do to make it not look like a blog. It's still important to have a blog. You can do press releases through that. The old school way of doing press releases, of having a white paper in the press kit section of your website, that's done very little anymore. Most of it's like, hey, we have this new product and everything great coming out, content. Or let's say, for example, you are the industry leader in something, you're going to also want to be the thought leader in something. So let's say, for example, you're a beekeeper. And I say that because I follow Bee Local Honey, which is one of the people that's come through here for cake. And he's doing a really good job right now in content blogging. He's done great pictures, like this is a queen larva, and I've got this hive set up in this neighborhood, and it talks about the type of honey that comes from that type of hive. And he's doing a really good job of educating the people. And I think that's going to be one of those things more than having a buy from me page product. I think people are going to like to dive into your blog and know more about like who you are, how you came to be, your thoughts on certain parts of the industry. And I think blogging is also one of those things that's going to help you with your SEO. If you have a really targeted blog post about something, it's going to come up high in Google searching. It's only going to drive people back to your website. So I mean, there's a lot of benefits, especially if you're competing in a local market and you're so content heavy that you're going to rise to the top, because not only you're local, you're also got the most value to give to the customers. And I think that's one of the things people don't focus on is a blog. And one of the things that people also, I'm not a writer, I don't know what to blog about. I say keep a running list of 50 ideas that you can blog about. And not all of them are going to be great ideas, or not all of them are going to be well developed, but they're just like little one-line thoughts. Like, I use Evernote when I say, that'd be a great blog article. I don't know what the hell I'm going to write about it, But I just know that that's content that is not widely talked about, that I can go in later and flesh out that content. And capture your ideas with a pen and paper if you're not using a digital device. And just make that content awesome. Make it just really easy to read for people, more in a conversation manner, I think works more than an authoritarian manner. And don't scrape or plagiarize content. Just have it all be original. And I think all that housed on a blog is going to help promote your page the best. Would you agree that the blog's a pretty strong portion of the website?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, especially, excuse me. Especially depends. I mean, more and more Google is rating pages based on the like the time at which it's been updated. So the more recent your content, and also because it's making an emphasis more on original content as opposed to just reposting things or copying and pasting and doing straight keyword searches that'll actually compare originality now across the board. Releasing original content on a regular basis is a great way to shoot up the Google rankings, especially like you said in the local or in niche field.
Yeah, I mean, you can, also use it as a promotional piece, but it's kind of like that mix of content. You're going to want to have your press releases. You're going to want to update people on upcoming sales, events, and products. You're also going to want to just recap what happens in your business. Like if you had a fundraiser in your business, you're going to want to recap that because that serves as a PR piece for the news to pick up on, and it serves that you do great things for the community. And I think just a blog overall helps summarize what's happening in your store better than just some fluffed up marketing page. And so I would say just lead strongly with a blog. I wouldn't say you have to blog every day. I would say maybe blog as it naturally comes to you. Try to make it at least a minimum of a month. It's like the fine line minimum, maybe twice a month. Just come up with something. It doesn't need to be pages and pages. Just maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs of something in a picture to help fill up space. And also help give that visual for people that don't always like to read. Videos are great. You can house videos in your blog. So I mean, try to do at least twice a month, once a month if you absolutely hate blogging. But finally, like after you get all this built and installed and everything, you got to promote your page. And the one thing, with a nicely picked URL that's short and memorable, print it on everything that you have, your signage, your advertisements. Just have your website everywhere because it's that little extension when you're closed or people aren't in your business that's also going to just help sell for you. And I think that's why nowadays websites are more important than ever because of the fact everybody keeps odd hours and people are going to want to search your business on their own time. If that's 2 in the morning and you're closed, you want at least a key piece. And just promote the hell out of it. Google Ads also help. And we talk about that in the SEO section. If you want to find out what keywords to use, run a Google ad. Google will tell you what keywords are either too saturated and too heavily competed on, and it'll also tell you what you should probably be marketing your content towards. And that's pretty much what I have for this week. We have a lot of questions online?
Yeah, I have a few that I was waiting for Dean to answer. The first thought was, which I already partially answered, but you can weigh in on this. Burke says most of the content he's going to be generating is picture-based. So he's guessing the way to make that work for SEO is going to be captions, and any thoughts on that versus sub-captions and how they work with WordPress?
So you can do captions on WordPress, and it's actually got a function when you upload a photo that you can have a caption that sits in a nice little box around your picture. You can also use pictures throughout your blog post. I mean, you don't have to post 12 pictures from one event. You can post 3 of the cutest pictures of kids tying balloons with you or have balloon animals on your head and just talk about that day that you were there. I think you can utilize Facebook as a great way to house pictures. You're going to, if you're really heavily into pictures, you can get on some social photo sharing sites, but that's just drawing people away from your site. I think using some of the, no more than 5 of your top pictures and making a blog post out of it would be great. Like, today I went to the Jansen Beach closing of the carousel, and you just kind of have pictures trailed down, and versus just having an empty blog with just pictures and captions. That's at least the way I would just create more of a content basis around those pictures, and also just use Facebook and Twitter as a platform to develop a lot of those pictures. Because a lot of times, especially for a Burke situation, parents are going to want copies of the pictures for their kids to download and share and so forth. Facebook's great for that. Put all your pictures up on Facebook in that one album, June 29th, blah, 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 and then let people know that, hey, if you want to see these pictures, go to Facebook. So that's at least my take on it too.
And then Jonathan was wondering, so he knows HTML and CSS pretty well. Can he hop straight to designing his own themes, or is that something that takes a little more training?
I would say that takes a little bit more training because you have to understand how a theme is determined in WordPress. WordPress gives you some very bare bone basic themes if you want to install those. And I mean, I'm talking like it's header, subheader 1, 2, 3, 4, and kind of scrolls down and gives you that, like, okay, this is going to have this value and so forth. And you can go that route. I think just to save time, find that there's so many ways, there's so many themes out there. Find something that has a similar layout and just tweak that is what I would recommend, because you're going to be spending most of your time doing something else. But if you want to invest the time into developing that, more power to you. If you don't understand WordPress, you don't understand how it breaks it apart into different PHP files and so forth.
Say you did get a theme and you don't want to have it look like everybody else who bought that
Right.
theme and you want to change it. Is it a regular thing where you can get a theme that you can replace images, you can replace the
Yeah,
buttons, you can replace the
you can replace the logo image, so it will have like a static image in the upper left corner of where the logo is going to be, and there will be an easy way to, in the appearance section, upload your own logo. Make sure it's this file size by this file size, and go on your merry way. You can also go into the CSS and the layout and so forth and kind of replace them manually, going through FTP and find out the file name of that photo and just make your own photo, name it the same thing, and just kind of replace it and let it auto-update if you want to not have to worry about some of the more difficult things to change. You know, just kind of keep it the same file name and just throw your own file name into that. That's that same size.
Have you seen a lot of success, like creating re-skinning a theme?
So as far as like,
challenging things to do that.
when I do WordPress websites, I pick a theme that is the closest to what I want it to look like, and then I highly modify it. So I'll change the colors where, some themes might say you have a blue, red, and green option. I don't like any of those colors. I want a brown option. I'll know later on where to go into the CSS and change that function. So I like the size of that particular header. I like where it's placed. I like where the sidebar margins are kind of pushed in. I like there's a half a page slider instead of a full across the page slider. So I look at different elements of a theme that I know that I can easily tweak and still have it function. I mean, you can change background colors and stuff like that pretty easily. So I try to go the least time route because I'm running the business. My time's not spent on creating a website. I want it, and you can always develop later on, but I mean, just for scrappy start it now, try to pick something as close to resembling as what you want to do. At least that's my advice.
Definitely for starting, yeah, don't try to design your own theme from scratch to start out. It's really...
Or vary it too much from it.
You can vary it in degrees and stages, so you don't have to, you can say, I don't like how the header is black, I want it this light brown color. You just change that one element and move on. So like over time, actually, I didn't even invest anything on Cake's blog theme. I found a free theme, and I in fact shrank the header size. The header size was like 120 pixels down. It kind of took up almost a quarter of the page. I shrank it to like 50, so it was a little bit more, and so the content would sit up a little bit higher. Now I added a picture into it and got rid of the plain text headline and kind of made it more of a banner across the top. So as the weeks go by, as I find time, I added a donate button. There's a lot of different things I added to as I went along, as I got ideas that if I would have just spent time doing it from scratch, I would have just never gotten.
You find it's easier to start a site thing that's more, say, complex and pulling out the complexity of it, or starting with something simple and adding to it?
I would say it's what you're comfortable with.
You're comfortable with, yeah.
I'm not comfortable going in, especially for time purposes, and taking a stripped down thing where it's just nothing but the placement of text and saying this is where this is going to be, or subheaders, or this size. I would say just changing colors on something that already looks nice, and then just moving on from there.
I have one more question. So your theme and say things like comments and the way that you lay out your website. Do you see that as a way that you can research into or look at how that would affect sales seeing like kind of the results from that, I guess, you know, like playing on.
So doing like A/B testing. And
Yeah, kind of playing on that.
Yeah, Google Webmaster Tools gives you the option to present a couple of different formats. And
is that a plugin part of it too?
What's that?
Is that a part of like a plugin for WordPress?
There is a plugin for Google Webmaster Tools where you get like your little unique short code from Google Webmaster Code and put it in there. But I would say just kind of use Google for that because it has excellent A/B testing, and just kind of create a secondary page and just have it load its option of this page or that page. It'll be a little bit more work, but if you truly want to get into the testing mode of if this is functional for your website, if you want to get bare bones and not go into the A/B testing, Google Analytics, where are people just dying on your website?
Right.
Where's the highest bounce rate? You know, if there's a 90% bounce rate on your About Us page, you need to change that because people are landing on that going, yeah, I'm done with it. You know, change it to either say something else or maybe change who you are. No. Maybe they just don't like you. But no, there's just a lot of different things you can get into. But
another question is simple. Was that if you buy a theme, because usually you have to buy, I think it's like $25 to have video as a component to your WordPress.
So that's if you have WordPress.com house your WordPress site.
Okay.
If you go to WordPress.org and you have your own separate like DreamHost hosting, you don't have to really worry about any of that because what WordPress does is like for $12 a year you can have your own URL on it, and you don't have to go that route. You can just have WordPress.org is basically the developer software that sits on your own hosting versus using WordPress hosting, and WordPress is...
That helps a lot because that's always trying to understand the difference between WordPress.com and .org. And
yeah, WordPress.com is WordPress hosted everything. So you start off with like your username .wordpress.com, and then you pay $12 to mask your own URL. And then you pay another $25 a month to house X number of gigabytes of video hosting, and then you pay in different stages for different functions of WordPress. And I don't like that at all because if you can pay $10 a month for hosting, why not just develop it on the .org side?
Host sites.
Yeah, and they also limit you on the number of plugins you can do on the .com side because they're afraid of malicious plugins that could crash your site and it would crash all of WordPress. So there is a little bit of like be aware of what you're installing on the .org side of WordPress, your own hosting. Find out how many times it's been downloaded. Anytime you're looking at a WordPress install, it'll have a rating system. If it was rated once and 5 stars and 2 people downloaded it, probably don't use that one. But if it's been downloaded 5,000 times and has a 4.8 out of 5 rating, that's probably a top one. And all the ones I listed out were kind of the ones that fall along that scale of things. And you know, just kind of, there's a lot of resources you can kind of go into. The WordPress community, that's the WordPress.org side of things. WordPress will let you know what's the up-and-coming plugin to look out for and you might want to install. Stack Exchange, which is well-known kind of like user community, has a separate WordPress part. So it's wordpress.stackexchange.com. And that is a whole community of people talking about developing on WordPress and issues with certain codes and so forth. And so there's Stack Exchange, yeah.
And for the questions from the audience, I'm just making sure we're getting at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I just asked the viewers online. They said it was a little hard hearing the questions. Okay, let's see. And then Burke had one, which I already gave my opinion on. But so he's going on Google Sites right now,
Right.
and is finding some difficulty in integrating that exactly. And WordPress just sounds a little maybe better for him. Would you recommend taking the trouble to switch over to WordPress from Google Sites, or should he just keep going on Google Sites?
In his case, I would say it would be an easy transition. Most of his stuff is text-based, so he can just literally copy his text and post it into his page that he wants it to be in. He doesn't have a lot of customized things on his site, so mainly images, and that's easy enough to kind of transfer over. I don't know how on his Google site if he can actually just download a zip file of all the images, or if he can go in FTP and transfer them over.
Yeah, I don't know how that works either.
There's the super difficult way if going into FTP, which is a file transfer utility. I use something cheap. I use Coffee Cup, which is a free FTP utility, and I just go into the back end of my website and find out where the folders are for certain pictures and just copy them on my own hard drive. When I get my own WordPress site back up, I put them back into that directory. But if he only has like 20 pictures, there's nothing stopping him from just uploading those pictures again to WordPress. I don't think his site's that developed. If you have a hugely developed website, I know Blogger, for example, has an import-export function. So if you have a Blogger website or a Blogger blog, there's an export function. We'll put it into like either an XML file or a CSV file, and then you can upload that into WordPress. And so it will keep your blog titles, the dates you published them, any comments that are with them, and the picture file extension, so you have to make sure you upload it in the same directory. So that's one way to kind of do that, is if you're going from one section, I'd recommend if he goes and sees if there's an export function on his Google sites. And then if it puts it into a file that WordPress can read, just upload it to WordPress and start from there.
Nice. And then I had a question for you, which is just, like after you get this down a little bit, like the first time will probably take a little longer to get this up and running, but now that you've done several of these sites yourself, how long would you say it takes to go through this whole process from like having nothing to having a WordPress site that's secure and that has a little bit of content and it has the right plugins? Like, what do you think is the timeline for people that just like the cake timeline of like, yes, look, you can get this going in this amount of time?
So installing, so let's go back through the steps. Installing WordPress on your host. If you go into your own personal host, there's usually a function to one-button touch install WordPress. That might take 15 minutes and maybe like another 5 or 10 minutes to kind of register. Or sometimes some hosts are longer. Like I know Lure Pages I've used, and it's a really good host. It says it could take up to 48 hours for WordPress to install. So you kind of have to give that leeway. And in the meantime of that installing, you're going to be handwriting or typing out the copy for your website and planning out the pages and the images you want to use, so you don't have to sit there stagnant. Creating your pages, like...
Right, now let's ignore creating content. Let's see if they already have the content written out. Like they already have everything planned out for the website and design. Like how long does it actually just take like on the WordPress side?
I've done like a 3 to 5 page WordPress site in like 4 hours. I mean, it just... I already had the content and just create the pages and kind of align it properly and make sure the files look good. I mean, I'm working on a WordPress site for my buddy, and I have everything but the content ready to go, and it took me 2 hours. So I have 5 pages planned out, I have a blog section, I have all the plugins, everything installed, and it took me like 2 hours. I'm just waiting on him to write the copy because I don't want to do that.
Yes, and then Bert says, how long to transfer a theme over from Theme Forest or similar over to a host?
So themes are pretty much instantaneous. The nice thing about a theme is you can install multiple themes and then activate them, and they'll even give you like a preview function. So let's say you buy 3 themes on ThemeForest, that's run you about $100. Or let's say you buy one and you have a couple of free ones running in the back. You just go into the appearance section of your dashboard on WordPress, go into themes, and it will just say preview, and it'll open up what your web page would look like in kind of like raw, unformatted, and then you can go in. That's to beat somebody up out there. grab a chair, everybody, let's go. But so I don't know if he heard that with the fight or whatever that was going on out there. But you can literally, as soon as you install them, and the install takes like a minute or 2, it's a zip file you'll upload to WordPress. And so a minute to download, a minute to upload. You can probably have 3 or 4 themes on there in a matter of 5 minutes and just kind of click through, preview each one, and then finally activate the one you want to work with.
Nice. Perfect. Great, that's it for questions on this end.
Okay, questions on that end. There's a lot that, I mean, there's a lot to kind of go for, and Graham and I are both available for, consultation and stuff like that if there's like run into a wall moments. And then
I've had a really specific one, but I'll just ask that on camera because it's like it's not going to appeal or apply to other people.
And then there's some resources in the bottom of your worksheet, and the worksheet's available online. Stack Exchange, great for getting help on specific code issues. W3 Schools, which is just kind of a basic, like, I don't know how to make a body tag or a bold tag in HTML. I'll show you how to do that. WordPress community, if you want to kind of stay up to date on the latest plugin that's being developed. Also, ThemeForest is the other resource, and I think a lot of answers can be found in there because you're not the first person to run into that. Somebody else already asked it, and it's probably already been answered years ago.
Awesome, that's great. And we're going to turn off the feed now for a little bit. Depending on whether the volume dies down next to us, we may just keep the feed off for the workshop portion for this one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will see you back here in just a few minutes. And my guess is we'll probably keep the feed off. So this is probably the...
This is a very non-visual, like, it's just, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, not a lot to show in the workshop portion anyway. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And once again, you can donate online on our website, or yeah, for the people here, we have donations in person. All right, thank you so much.
Got it.